Hello, I'm Sarah, and welcome to the Whispering Woods After Dark. I've got one long narrative today, and it's all about phantom car crashes that are phantom, but they actually happened prior to people seeing the crashes. I'm not really making a lot of sense, but I do want to say I know this episode is a bit shorter, and apologies for that. I'm kind of running out of steam now. We're in the final leg, trying to get to Christmas. Sorry, I know this is after Christmas for some people, but for patrons and Apple Premium subscribers, this is coming out on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. So I'm doing it all beforehand so that I can have a chill in between. I'll get straight into it. Are you ready for the story? On a cold December night in 2002, a stretch of the A3 highway near Burpham, Surrey, became the scene of a mystery that would baffle police and mesmerise the public. Multiple motorists dialed 999 in a panic around 7:20 p.m, reporting that they had seen a car veer off the road with its headlights blazing before disappearing into the darkness. It seemed like an ordinary, if unnerving, accident report at first. But when officers rushed to the location, just before the slip road leading into Burpham, they found no wreck, no broken glass, no tyre marks, nothing at all to indicate a crash had just occurred. The bewildered police combed the roadside in vain under the moonless sky. The callers insisted they'd witnessed a car careen off the highway, yet it was as if the reported vehicle had vanished into thin air. Confused by the absence of any crash debris or distressed vehicle, officers expanded their search into the night. Hours passed with no success. Only with the first light of dawn did the truth reveal itself. Roughly 20 yards from the carriageway, concealed deep in the tangle of bushes and brambles at the bottom of an embankment, police found the crumpled remains of a maroon Vauxhall Astra. The car was nose down in a ditch, entombed by months' worth of foliage and almost impossible to spot from the road above. It was immediately clear this was not a fresh accident. The wreck looked aged and long abandoned. Nearby, a few metres up the slope, officers made a chilling discovery. Lying in the undergrowth were the skeletal remains of a man, his body badly decomposed. It appeared the driver had survived the initial crash, and in a desperate bid for help, had managed to crawl out of the driver's seat. The driver's side door was crushed, and dragged himself part way up the embankment toward the road before succumbing to his injuries. He had died alone in the dark, hidden from sight, while thousands of commuters unknowingly drove past, just yards away, for 5 months. When forensics and investigators arrived, they slowly unravelled the identity of the victim. The remains, now little more than a skeleton, were eventually identified via dental records as 21-year-old Christopher Brian Chandler. In a strange twist, Chandler was no ordinary missing person. He had been reported missing by his family back in July 2002, around the same time the crash was believed to have occurred. In fact, he was wanted by the Metropolitan Police in connection with a robbery. He was essentially a fugitive on the run at the time of his disappearance. No one in Chandler's life knew why he had driven down to Surrey that summer night. His last known whereabouts had been an evening out drinking with friends in Hounslow, West London. At some point after leaving the pub, he inexplicably headed south alone. Investigators discovered one last detail frozen in time. Chandler's mobile phone had made a call to his brother around the time of the accident. At approximately 1 a.m. on July 16, 2002. The call lasted only a single broken second before cutting off. It never connected to anyone. To this day, police cannot determine if that phone call was dialed moments before the crash or in a dying attempt to get help. With the puzzle pieces in place, authorities now confronted an unsettling timeline. The wrecked Astra and Chandler's body had been lying hidden since the summer, yet numerous witnesses had just reported an accident that December night. Somehow, those drivers on December the 11th, 2002, had described a crash that in reality had happened 5 months earlier. Many began to say that the witnesses on the A3 had seen a ghostly reenactment of the fatal July crash, a paranormal echo replaying on the highway. Christopher Chandler's restless spirit, or the residual energy of that wreck, had manifested itself in visible form to finally draw attention to the hidden crash site. One theory was that the dead man's ghost staged another crash in front of witnesses so that his body would at last be found and laid to rest. Local newspapers and national tabloids ran with the paranormal angle. Did drivers see a ghost car? Hysterical headlines claimed a ghostly replay of the accident had led police to the long-lost crash site. To this day, many Surrey residents still talk about that night, and the idea of a phantom car leading officers to a hidden corpse. The stretch of the A3 near Guildford gained an uncanny reputation, and drivers still admit to feeling a jolt of unease when passing the Burpham slip road after dark. Not everyone was convinced the incident was truly supernatural. Surrey police themselves maintained a more down-to-earth explanation, officially treating the event as nothing more than a delayed discovery of a routine accident. They pointed out that the wreck was heavily obscured by leaves and branches, which is why no one noticed it for months. It was suggested that perhaps some motorists had glimpsed the mangled car earlier, but assumed it was an old crash already being handled, and never reported it. In the police view, the December sightings of the crash might have been a simple mistake or illusion, perhaps lights from another vehicle at an odd angle, or an animal darting across the road, causing drivers to imagine the worst. Yet even the most hard-nosed non-believers in the paranormal had to admit the timing and precision of the reports defied easy explanation. The callers had independently described the exact spot where the hidden car was found, and nothing unusual was found that night besides the long-dead wreck. It was as if the accident wanted to be discovered. For believers in the paranormal, this was no coincidence at all, but a classic case of a resident ghost replaying its moment of death, what some call a residual haunting. It remains one of Surrey's most infamous roadside mysteries, and to this day no one has definitively solved how or why multiple people saw a phantom car accident that never physically occurred, at least not that night. The A3 ghost crash may be Surrey's most famous ghost motor incident, but it's far from the only one. The country lanes and highways of southern England have their share of ghostly travellers and unexplained accidents. Just east of Guildford, for instance, the A22 Caterham bypass has given rise to its own spooky legend. Over the years, dozens of motorists have reported a mysterious girl darting across the A22 in the dead of night. These drivers, often travelling in the early hours around 3 a.m, describe a young woman with long hair, wearing a skirt and short boots, suddenly wandering into the road out of nowhere. She is usually seen in the glow of the headlights for a fleeting moment, pale and dishevelled, before vanishing into the darkness without a trace. One road maintenance crew reported that on cold, misty nights, they repeatedly saw a faceless girl emerge from the trees at Tillingdown Farm, dash across the tarmac, climb the highway barrier and disappear into the woods. Always in the same spot, and always one way. On one surreal occasion, a street cleaner working on the shutdown bypass returned to his truck and felt an invisible presence sitting in the passenger seat beside him. The worker turned on his cab light to find empty air. The encounters became so frequent that paranormal investigators from the North Surrey Paranormal Group set up CCTV cameras along the Caterham bypass in 2006, hoping to catch the Caterham ghost on film. While proof remains elusive, sightings of the wandering girl continue to this day. As recently as 2023, a lorry driver swore he saw a young blonde woman in a miniskirt run in front of his truck on that road and vanish into thin air. Our next story happens most often on winter nights, along a bleak stretch of the A38 near South Brent, Devon. Drivers heading toward Plymouth report the same thing. A set of lorry headlights drifting across the carriageway, swerving hard as if the driver has lost control. Witnesses swear they watched the vehicle tip, roll, and vanish down the embankment, sometimes even hearing the thundering impact as it crashes out of sight. They pull over, they dial 999, and when emergency crews arrive, the scene is always the same. No skid marks, no broken branches, no overturned lorry, nothing at all. Yet the callers insist they saw it clearly, the panic, the veer, the lights disappearing into the darkness. Local papers first documented these reports in the 1970s, but the sightings have never stopped. Older residents state that the phantom lorry matches a real fatal crash from the 1950s, when a tanker overturned in thick fog and burned at the roadside. They say the impact was so violent that it shook houses in the village. Some believe the road is replaying that terrible moment over and over, like a needle stuck in a groove. Others think it's something stranger, an echo that calls out only when the night is cold enough and quiet enough for the past to bleed through. The A75 between Annan and Dumfries looks ordinary by day, a long exposed run of tarmac cutting through farmland and forests. Ask any long-distance driver, and they'll tell you there's something wrong with Kintmount Strait, a mile-long stretch where reality seems to stutter. For decades, truckers have reported seeing catastrophic crashes appear out of nowhere, a car flipping end over end ahead of them, a lorry jackknifing across both lanes, even a pileup that sends debris flying into the verge. Drivers slam on their brakes, bracing for impact, only to find the road completely empty when they reach the spot. No twisted metal, no dust, no shattered glass glittering in the headlights. Just the silent ribbon of the A75 continuing into the dark. Police logs contain numerous statements from shaken motorists describing the same thing. Violent crashes that dissolve the moment you approach them. Some of the apparitions match accidents recorded decades earlier, down to the colour and age of the vehicles. Others are impossible, scenes involving cars that haven't existed for 50 years. Locals call the A75 Scotland's Ghost Road, and they say Kintmount Strait is the heart of it, a place where time folds in on itself. The M6 is one of the busiest roads in the UK. It's also one of the strangest. For more than 30 years, drivers have reported witnessing pileups that simply aren't there. Multi-vehicle collisions appearing ahead on the carriageway, complete with sparks, screeching tyres, even the violent shudder of impact. Some motorists say they've braced for a collision, gripping the wheel with both hands, only to realise there is no wreckage, no obstruction, and the traffic around them continues as normal. A few claim they felt their own cars jolt sideways, as if struck by an invisible force. One of the most chilling accounts came from a night shift lorry driver near Junction 17, who watched an entire line of brake lights blossom in front of him as cars slammed into one another. The cascading pileup that stretched across all lanes. When he rolled to a stop, there wasn't a single vehicle on the road. The strangest detail? Some of the phantom pileups match real documented crashes from the 1970s and 90s. Scenes described to police in almost perfect detail, long before the witnesses ever learned those accidents had happened. People say the M6 is layered with history, Roman roads, old battle routes, the ghosts of travellers long gone. But whatever lingers here seems tied to something more recent. Moments of fear, chaos, and sudden death. Trapped in the asphalt, replaying for anyone unlucky enough to drive that stretch after midnight. Late at night on the moorland stretch between Launceston and Bodmin, the A30 becomes a strange, silent place. A long, exposed run of Cornwall's oldest highway. For years, drivers have reported the same experience. A car suddenly appears in the opposite lane, swerving wildly, headlights blazing, hurtling straight toward them, in what looks like a guaranteed head-on collision. Witnesses slam their brakes, some pull violently toward the verge, others close their eyes, certain the impact is coming. At the moment the two vehicles should collide, the oncoming car dissolves into nothing. Locals tie this apparition to a real fatal crash in the 1970s, when a driver lost control and collided head-on with an oncoming vehicle. The crash was so violent, that residents in nearby farms said they heard the metal tear open like a scream. Since then, motorists say the phantom car still barrels down the road on foggy nights, replaying its final seconds again and again, as though the moment of impact never truly ended. A haunting loop on an old Cornish highway.
At IUP, grad school fits into my life, so I can keep working while I build my career. And you can too. They have everything from MBAs to doctoral degrees to specialized certificates, all taught by nationally recognized professors. With 60 grad programs, I found one that fits my schedule. So find yours, either online, on campus, or a blend of both. Indiana University of Pennsylvania opens doors. Learn more at iup.edu.
I heard the first story. I think it was a Mr. Ballum episode that I listened to about this, and I just don't think there's really any way to explain it, because the lights reflecting all of that stuff doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, to have so many people see the same thing and ring it in. The police, their excuses, they don't sound plausible to me. Their logic makes no sense to me. But maybe that is just me, because it was definitely a ghost crash. The girl running across, that sounds awful, spooky. I think that figure is probably the one that freaks me out the most, to see that running across the road. But there are so many, and I've discovered so many more of these, that I will do another haunted road or haunted crash episode sometime in the future. But that's it from me today. I hope you enjoyed, and I will catch you again tomorrow. Take care, everyone. The stories told on the Whispering Woods are inspired by historical records, witness reports, and local folklore. While every effort is made to research and represent events accurately, some details, names, and locations may differ from official accounts or have been changed out of respect for those involved. These episodes are created for storytelling and entertainment purposes, and should not be considered definitive fact or investigative journalism.